Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blabbit. Thanks for joining us here on our weekly podcast where we talk to experts about all kinds of really interesting things and very applicable things to anyone who's in business. And really, aren't we all in the business of promoting ourselves? For those of you tuning in for the first time, this is a weekly podcast and it is sponsored by the employee engagement platform Open Doors. My name is Paul Geiger, and I am a public speaking coach and a presentation expert out of New York City. I work with people on either dealing with the fear of being more clear or removing self-sabotaging habits. And I think we're going to be talking a little bit about that with our guest here today. But my co-host on Blabbit, Mr. Glenn Ingram. How are you, Glenn?
Hey, Paul. Good. Thank you. How are you?
Great.
Hey, everyone. My name is Glenn Ingram. I've been working for the last 20 years helping people become better communicators, better influencers, so they can maybe apply it to the sales field. How are you, Sandy?
I'm well. How are you guys? Thank you again for having me on. This is amazing.
Our pleasure.
Tell us a little about yourself, if you would.
Sure. So I've been in sales for 30 years and I am now a sales consultant and I am a mindset sales coach. I do things a little differently. Not that I don't come into your organization and do audits as well as helping the performance of your team and lead your sales manager into greatness. But I find that when we work from a sales perspective, it's all about the way that we think. So if we can start there, anyone can do sales. Everybody is a salesperson. We're selling every day. So whether it's influencing our husbands, our kids, people in the store, it doesn't matter. We're always selling. We're always influencing. So if we have a good perspective on sales, I've learned the art of let go limited beliefs, finding out what drives people, understanding their limitations. And this is why I do what I do every day.
Well, you wrote a book a while back. What was it, last year, the year before, something like that? How to Become the Master of Asking, which is an interesting tongue twister if you try to say it 5 times fast. The Master of Asking.
I don't say it 5 times fast.
Well, knowing you, Sandy, you only have to say it once.
Right.
But in terms of asking the right questions, I want to touch today on, number one, the feeling that we get that we need to somehow be given permission to ask questions, which is an interesting mindset. But even more important than that, and what I'd like to start with is the quality of your questions. And I'll frame that with an example. I have worked with sales managers individually and in organizations as well. And I'm amazed sometimes the materials actually guide everyone to say, well, tell me a little bit about your company, which seems like a really obvious question on the onset, but it's not. That's like step number 1 toward building a wall of interrogation. So you give us a little bit of insight about that. I see you shaking your head, and this is one of those things that I always tell everyone, don't go by the handbook. Don't do that. What would you suggest instead?
Well, society has changed tremendously and our customers' expectations have changed and we're a do it now society. So people love to talk about themselves and opening that line of questioning may seem harmless, but I look at it in retrospect as saying, number one, we should have done our due diligence. Social media is everywhere. When I get online with someone or I'm going into a consulting situation where I have a prospect, I better know everything about them. We can find them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We have endless resources to look up the company. Tell me more about your company. It's a dead end. And you didn't do your research and shame on you. So anyone who's in any sales capacity, we better know everything we can about someone. We should be asking questions based on a biography that we built. That's my theory on that. I think we do our due diligence. It just makes us seem more intelligent than we actually are.
Insightful, really. Exactly. You agree, Glenn?
Well, I think it's always the typical answer. It depends. It depends on the acumen of your salesperson, stuff like that. And I've been with the people that always drove my sales managers crazy because I don't do what works for everybody else because I'm not everyone else. For me, I think the reason why I love Blabbit is I do this the same way I go into any sales calls. I don't do research because I want to talk to them and get to know them personally and then take the personal over to business. And by the time I talk to them a little bit about personal, then I'm going to know what questions I want to ask them, so I don't have preconceived notions. But again, I'm a weird person, so for 90% of the people, I agree with Sandy 100%. For us unicorns, we're a little bit different.
And I love that perspective. I think it's a fresh perspective. It's not, and I don't think the question, I think it's the way that we phrase the question. So for us, it's not about having any preconceived notions. And remember, it's the questions that we ask and the quality of questions and when we ask them and what our listening skills are. So I am a little bit of a unicorn myself, whatever that means. I know I'm not purple, but I look at things and I say, if we're asking them to tell me more, it's more about opening up the line of conversation that you're looking for, right? Because we all have our maps of our own territory. So we to be insightful, and I completely agree, is to ask better questions, but not from our perspective, from their perspective, and understanding that I see blue, you may not see blue, and that's the challenge that we face today, is that we always look at things from our perspective and not for whomever is on the other side.
Well, isn't it? Go ahead, Glenn.
I didn't get to ask a question, Paul. Come on now, you're hurting my feelings.
I asked you a question. I said, do you agree?
Yeah.
So I think along with that, I think anytime you're walking into somebody, they're always on their heels a little bit because they know they're talking to a salesperson. So what's your perception on this? I always thought if I can start talking about them, and when I'm in their office, walking in their office, my eyes are on radar to see things, to talk about a golf tournament, to talk about a boat. Because I think with people, when they start talking personally, the old adage I would say was they would start sitting up in their chair and talking to me. As a salesperson, when you're talking to them, sometimes they start sitting back and their guards are up. So I think anytime you can start with the personal before you start the professional, you get to build a little bit of rapport, and that kind of gives you the ability to ask some different questions. What's your opinion about going in and meeting somebody for the first time and starting off with questions and conversations, personal versus professional?
Well, a rapport building is everything. It could start on the pre-call. For me, I'm in love with talking to people. Some people don't like small talk. I want to know. I don't know why. It's just been something for me that has been a fact finder. So whether I'm at a bar or restaurant, if I'm standing in line at the grocery store, I start to talk to people. And the more that I've done that, the more that I became really good at asking the right questions. So personal is personal, and it flows into business, and it starts the like and trust factor. So sales has changed considerably. I look at myself as a solution provider, and we're just friends. If we can have that balance before we get into it, people don't obviously want to be sold to, but they do want to buy what you're selling. So we have to change our philosophy and change our mindset to think, okay, they asked me here for a reason. And they always want to be in control of the conversation. But as a good salesperson, solution provider, we maintain control. We just let them think that they are the ones leading us. And if you can do that with a proper line of questioning, and I always ask question after question. I don't stop there and I don't answer questions. I ask another question. So when someone's hitting me with an objection, I just keep asking questions. It keeps moving the conversation further along. And I think it's a good perspective, because when does personal and business intersect? When do we draw the line? Isn't it just a follow through flow?
Absolutely.
And that's how I look at it.
Absolutely. And I tell everyone that the decision making is an emotional process. It really is. There's logic involved. It has to make sense. But even that phrase, making sense, is very subjective. And it really depends on what your emotion is, what your gut is telling you. So I just want to circle back for a second, because you brought up something really interesting about sales process. And I think it's something that we have even more opportunity to leverage. Not that we didn't have the opportunity to leverage this 15 or 20 years ago, but that is doing the work before the actual sales call. Now, Glenn, you've talked about this, how don't just bombard me. Don't just, we're not going to jump in and get married. We have to kind of warm up to it. How much do you advise, Sandy, building up to that call, so it's not all just I'm seeing you for the first time, learning everything for the first time? In other words, when is it enough? When is it appropriate? And when is it too much to give them information in drips, kind of following the rule of 7, even pre first call, if they've agreed to it? What do you take on that?
Well, I look at this in a percentage factor. 80% of people want what I have. The other 20% are going to sell me on something. And we're the two things of our outcome. One is that I'm going to walk out with what I desire, and that's a new client. And they're going to walk away with selling me their limitations.
Hmm.
So I don't think there's ever too much. You have to get to know people on their language and really listen and hone in on when it is too much. I don't believe in hard sales. I think if you cannot make a sale or provide a solution, then A, we haven't done enough to influence. Two, they're just not ready. It may not
Hmm.
be the right time. Or three, we have not asked enough to provoke them to understand. They called us for a reason, or they said yes to the meeting for a reason, correct? So
Hmm.
sometimes they just want to be educated and they may not want to further the relationship along. But if we do a really good job building the rapport and understanding what their value is and how they buy, and I'm very big at understanding what people value and what they find important, because too many salespeople spend a lot of time from their perspective and they don't do enough due diligence on what you value. How do you buy things? How does your mind work? So it's a double-ended sword on that end. But I really think if we can slow down the process, it's never too much. And a really qualified solution provider knows when it's time to say, you know what, thank you so much. I look forward to contacting you again. You should never have the hard sale. It just, and that means you lost the sale on the front end. It's never about the end.
Well, I have a next question because, again, it's some of the weird things that I started a few years ago when I really realized that I need to find people to work with that have similar traits, beliefs, ideals that I have if I want to be a long-term relationship. So if you and I are having our first meeting, I'm going to say, thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that we're having this meeting. Now I want to take the first 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to tell you about me, what makes me tick, why I get out of bed every day. I'm going to ask you to do the same. At the end of that 15 to 20 minutes, if we don't agree that we're a good relationship, personally and professionally, let's not even talk about business because I don't want to waste your time. What are your thoughts about doing that to build rapport? And that way, by the time you get that, you're going to learn other things to ask them about, and you're probably going to find out something about their business when they're telling about themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Because, well, how we do one thing is how we do everything. So if they're doing it in their personal life, they're going to be doing it in their business as well. What I don't sell to everyone. I'm not for everyone. And I probably repel a lot of people. And I don't sell from an ego standpoint. I look at it as a focus of adding value to someone's life. So when I look at it, I know my value proposition. I know the people that are looking for someone like me. Sales consultancy for me is not about me coming in and preaching. It's about me looking and auditing your company and knowing exactly who I work with. So we probably wouldn't even be in the same room if we didn't have like-mindedness already. And we haven't done our due diligence for me to vet you out. So I qualify with questions and then I probe with extra questions to even understand if we're a good fit from the get-go. I'm not just going to speak to anybody. I don't have time to waste. You don't have time to waste. And for me, it doesn't, I won't shine in that light because now I'm trying to convince you to hire me and I don't want to convince you. It should just be a natural progression. And I think for the years that I've been doing this, I've matured enough to understand that I am not for everyone. Right. And you'll do better in that. I work in the space of people between $1 and $5 million who are looking to now hire salespeople, or you do have a sales team, or you have a sales manager and you just don't understand the KPIs. We don't know what our key performance looks like. We haven't put together a system and a process. I ask qualifying questions because if they have that performance, I want to know what your conversion is. How are you guys measuring? And I may not want to go in and start with a startup who they don't even know how to sell. Can I do it? Can I fix your brain, so to speak, and have you understand that your limiting beliefs are guiding you instead of opposite? I can. It's just not my strong suit. So I know who is my prospect and I know who isn't. I think if we start from knowing ourselves and who we can best serve, then we really don't need to qualify and clarify that early on. That's my take on it. And that's how I work. And it's just done better for me. Because I remember knocking on every single door because anybody who had an ass in a seat was sellable.
Yeah.
I came from Wall Street where pick up that phone and you call everyone.
Hmm.
And that's not how it works today.
Well, let me ask you this. I was just thinking about when people do call up. Actually, I'm going to break away a little bit from the sales process of reaching out to your clients, or Glenn, yours or mine. But when you are engaged with an organization and you're working with them, and obviously the impetus is that they want to increase sales. I mean, just in a very generalized way. And one of the things that increases sales is to be better at handling objections.
Mm-hmm.
So is there some best practices? I know it varies depending on what business vertical you're in, but can you give some best practices in terms of handling objections? And I know you touched on one a little bit there, and that's when you get a no to a question, you just ask another question. But is there any good language? I think I asked this question, Glenn, of every guest. What's some of the language? Because I'm such a language guy.
You are. I love that. And language is everything. And it's the way that we speak and how we guide them. I mean, everybody wants to believe that they are very good at what they do because that's how we're high on the ego drive. So when we can understand them from a linear level, I look at people. I have to be honest with you. For me, I've been training for a very long time. Some of my best salespeople have never sold. When I just left my last consulting job, I was fortunate enough to work with an IT gentleman. He had a lot of family drama growing up, and there were limiting beliefs. He was blocked. He couldn't move forward. So the woman who sat next to us was like, "Are you in therapy session or are you doing sales training?" So once we uncover what would stop us from getting objections or how we handle objections, that's first and foremost. And then we're able to qualify and isolate the objection through how we deliver our content. So by me asking questions, I know what the top 10 objections I get in any industry should know what their top 10 are in theirs. And we can construct it so that we can put that off before we even get to the end. I always believe this is a football game. We're playing offense, defense. If we can isolate those objections through our pitch, so to speak, in the beginning and during our conversation, then we're going to not get that at the end. How many times do you hear, and Glenn, you'll be able to know what I'm talking about with this one. I can't make that decision. My wife's not here right now. Right? So we know that the first objection, second objection, they're just their own limiting beliefs. They're scared of making the decision, whatever it is. We don't really get that fine tuned with what people are thinking. We listen to their language, we understand them. But I say before I even call, is there anyone else that needs to be involved in this decision for us to move forward? Right? So we can isolate and we can handle those head on if we know what they are. So it's not about we're playing offense here. If we need to do that on the defense, then we're already too late. Now we're just combating, we're fighting, and it becomes a pull push. Before we were just having a conversation. And now we've said, is there anyone else? Is this a good time? And I find that most salespeople, professionals, do not set an agenda. Right. So I look at people entering, let's just take, I did consulting for a restoration company. When we walk through the door, Mrs. Smith, thank you for having us in your home. I just wanted to make sure that you and I are in understanding that I'm going to be in your home for about 2 hours. And they've already addressed this on our dispatch, on our customer service, and on our pre-call. And I believe that all of our messaging and our languaging throughout our organization needs to be fluid, and we need to be succinct. So everyone is saying the same thing. And it's just one piece that flows into another. And that's the same if you construct it as a salesperson. It's our phone call, could be a cold call, or you calling me. I'm going to say the same thing and lead to the next step. Our emails, all my messaging is the same. So the objections don't really fall into my lap as much as I would normally. And back in the day when I was still really green and I was trying to figure out, how to get more sales and push people a little bit differently, I fell short. And then I was pulling and pushing, and then you were exhausted by the end. And now I'm convincing. So I really have learned to head that off throughout my conversation and my questions, because I know that a true discussion is going to head off a lot of the objections that they normally hear.
Yeah. It's amazing that when you're doing a face-to-face meeting, bringing in an agenda and setting it down there, how it sets the frame. And when they start asking a question, say, you know what, I'm happy to get to that, Sandy, but remember, we have to go down this list right now in order for us to get to where we need to go. So it's amazing how that agenda gives control.
Absolutely. And I was taught really early on in the financial world, go in with a blank pad so they don't know exactly how long this line of interrogation is going to take, because it's a nice flow of conversation. I know what I need to do because I'm very well planned out. They don't need to know, but they know that from start to finish, it's probably going to be about 2 hours. We've already agreed upon that. So we get a buy-in.
Yeah. So let's attack the age-old adage of a 1-call versus a 2-call close. I've always been a fan of teaching a 2-call close. Doesn't mean it can't happen in one appointment, but by going in and collecting information, I've told people this for years. I can say, Paul, you know what? I've learned a lot more about your business that I didn't know when I came in. Is there possible you can give me 10 or 15 minutes to put together a customized proposal for you, and then we can discuss this if you're ready to make a decision today? A, you're establishing that they're ready to make a decision today, and B, you're giving some time to give them a customized approach versus just a boilerplate that a lot of salespeople walk in with. So what's your opinion about the 1/2 call close?
I'm not objected to it. What I think is what I know is that it depends on the industry. For me, if you are in a position where you're an emergency service company, something that's an inconvenience to them, it can be plumbing, HVAC, anything that we need to do it now. We have a 90-second window because that's where they're looking. That's where their emotion is. If we are looking to do something like buy a car, I don't think they need to do it now. We need to find out how they buy and understand the process, right? So I'm not objected to that at all. I don't think there's anything wrong with the 2-call close if we set it up properly. And as long as we've asked the right questions, we set the frame, and if we have to build a proposal, again, it depends on the industry. It depends how convoluted the sale is. You know, if it's a customizable, for me, my approach is I sell 2 packages. One is an audit, and then one is an audit with actual personalized training and role playing, etc. So I don't really customize. Everyone needs the same things for my perspective. So again, industry specific, because if you have water damage in your home right now, we'll go back to restoration. I'm not coming back. We got to someone's going to clean this up, and it better be me. So I can't leave that house without a signed, document, work authorization, or whatever you call it. Industry specific again. So, but I think there's nothing wrong with it, and we need to set it up properly.
And if I may, Paul, when we're talking about objections, the one things that I've had salespeople have the hardest time to understand is it's okay not to know. So if they ask a question that you don't know, I've never seen anyone in my life upset to say, you know what, I'm not sure, but Paul's an expert in this. Do you mind if I touch base with Paul and then get back to you? Because A, now you've made them feel good enough that you're going to call the expert, and B, you've been honest with them and not BS them. So how do you approach that with salespeople?
I love that. We're not the knowledgeable ones of everything. Otherwise, we'd be in different positions of the world, right? So I look at us saying, coming down a notch, finding the right answer, the right solution. I can guess. I always say, I can give it my best go, but I would like to go to someone who's more knowledgeable than me in this area, and I'll get back to you. But you better get back to them. And if I don't have an answer by day's end, and this goes for wherever you are in your company, always get back to them and say, still working on this. I just want to let you know I haven't forgotten about you. Right. Because communication is key, and everybody wants to feel significant. And once we take that away from them, for me, I feel significant if you care enough about me to get the right answer. I don't want just any answer. I want the right answer. So I love that. It's a perfect way to put it.
And you're right, Glenn, that is not something that everybody takes into account, because this is an interesting topic that I've been talking about quite extensively over the last year or so. And that is, whenever we are in a high stakes presentation environment, and a sales call is definitely one of those, we are all tethered with a little bit of that expert syndrome. In other words, this person wouldn't be listening to me unless I was whatever you want to call it, the expert, the solution provider, the whatnot. I don't want to look bad in front of this person. I want to look like I can provide them exactly what it is they want. So you bring up an excellent point, but just mentally, it sounds counterintuitive to our survival mechanism, which is all, this person is looking at me. Their presence, my need to be an expert is threatening. Therefore, I'm going to try to swim as fast as I can. So yes. And we all go through that, whether it's a sales call or you're speaking up in a meeting, speaking to the board of directors, giving a big speech in front of people. As soon as the spotlight goes on you, I'm claiming to be an expert now. I better prove it.
The proof is in the pudding, everyone says, right? So when I look at people coming to me, I am an expert in my area. I'm not an expert in all areas. I don't claim to be. And I know there's people that I can kind of pepper with things and pull in, and it only makes me better. So we're only as good as a team that is around us. And I have amazing, amazing people that I know that I can reach out. I have outreach all over. I can say, hey, can you just give me a little insight on this? Because maybe they know an industry better than I do. So how can I handle that? I would like to find out from people that are around me. And I think in today's society, everyone, they're good with us going out and saying, I want to get you the right solution. I want to make sure that the answer that I give you is one that has been formulated by someone else. I can project, but they don't want that. They want someone that it's a concrete, we can back that up with some kind of data. And it depends what kind of learner they are, right? So we have the 4 different styles of learning, and that's how I look at why I say before, let's find out how people buy. What was the last thing you bought, Mrs. Smith? Find out how they went about buying that. What do they look at in a vendor? What do they look at in someone that they want to work with? Understanding those value systems tells me what kind of person you are. Are you kinesthetic? Do you have to touch it, feel it? Do we have to look at a brochure? Are we auditory? Are you fine with us engaging this way? Are you auditory digital where you need to read reviews? Or are you just a gut reactor, and just say, okay, let's just buy this right now because it sounded good. It's what I wanted. I made my decision. I don't need to go. I don't read reviews. I don't care. For me, it's about you coming to me as an expert. I've already enlisted in you because I believe you are expert, and you're the one who's going to stand there. And if you're confident and you know what you're selling, then I'm going to buy from you. That's just me. And I think that we have to find out their buying signals, and we ask questions. I mean, I do all neurolinguistic programming, so I know how to kind of read people a little differently. I listen to their languaging. I listen to the need, have, want. Because Paul, if you said to me, Sandy, I need to ask you a question. Okay, you need to. So I know it's a must. And when we listen for those buying signals, and that's kind of how I teach. It's maybe a little bit more obscure, and it's not just everyday patterns of language, but understanding really how our language patterns are developed will help me and that builds rapport as well. It'll help me to help you understand the solution. Whereas prior to that, if we're not on the same, they call it page, then we're not connecting, we're not going to make a sale. And sometimes it's our body language and it's the languaging that we use. So it's really critical at that juncture that we make sure that we're on the same pattern of behavior and the same pattern of language.
Well, let's take that same concept and turn it around to the salesperson and their preconceived notions and their buying patterns. And the old adage is they sell with their own wallet. So if they typically are frugal, they have a hard time proposing something that's a higher dollar value. If they typically take longer to make a decision, they're not going to press for, can you decide today? So how do you work with salespeople to get around their preconceived notions so that they can be more successful?
Well, that's why I go into therapy mode. I need to find out how you think, how you purchase. What was the last thing you bought? What was the biggest check you ever wrote? So when I'm hiring sales superstars or I'm training and role playing, I'm listening for their language as well. I can tell right away if someone has some kind of limiting beliefs. And it's not just about confidence, right? We all try to exude confidence in every area of our life, and especially when you're in front of someone. I listen to their languaging as to if they wrote a $500 check and then they're selling a $10,000 product. Sometimes that's not going to go hand in hand. So you're right. We take our limitations and we expose them in the sales process. And we actually are like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm asking for this amount of money. So I isolate all of that before we even put anybody on the road. And if your team is doing it, it's not that hard to undo. We just need to get past those barriers. And those are the limitations that keep us who we are. So I'm going to tell you a little secret. I create a second point, like a 2.0 second version of someone. So the thing, let's say that you've been selling for 10 years and the whole, can't teach an old dog new tricks. Yes, we can. We're wired in one way, but we can rewire in a new way. So I want to find out what drives you, what's your why? Why are you working this hard? What do your numbers look like? I make them keep track of every sales call they have. We find out what their average ticket is. We understand why they're missing these opportunities. To me, missed opportunities are way more important than what we're selling. Because sometimes we just get lucky, right? Somebody needs something, they're like, oh, let's just buy it. I mean, great. Let's congratulate that big win. Yay, yay. But let's look at why they missed it. Could it be the time of day we don't sell well? Do we not have a certain personality type that we don't sell well? I do tools, assessments. I do all of those things. But truly, I create a new version of themselves. And that 2.0 gives us why are we working? What are we doing? What do we want our life to look like? And then we can leave those old past beliefs behind. So I agree with you. And we've all been there, young kids going out working for the first time and you're in front of someone and you've got the jitters because they just drove up in a Mercedes and you barely, you're wearing the same outfit for the third day in a row. But then we sell from scarcity and we don't sell from abundance. So that 2.0 version of yourself is going to be abundant and we already have it as if.
So how long does it take to affect that sort of a change? And I realize, as Glenn had said earlier in the episode, it depends. But one of the famous phrases that I use, and Glenn has heard it quite a few times in the last couple of months, is with my work, the work that I do, and I am looking to change people. They want a solution, just like everyone else. I say you'll see noticeable change in 6 weeks and lasting change in 6 months. Meaning that if you stay the course, literally, you will begin to own some of these patterns. Do you normally engage for that much time? Does it take longer than that to actually turn around a sales team, a sales manager, an individual, an organization? I mean, what kind of, obviously you get to use the analytics and the numbers to basically spell out success, but is there a sweet spot for that you've found over the years?
Quite honestly, I work with you on a 6 month to a year basis because I do believe we need to implement and then we need to train to be better, and it never stops. And the role playing, in order for us to create these new habits, the change, it doesn't matter. I have salespeople that change within a matter of a week or two, because I've hit on some of the old belief systems that no longer apply and we don't need them anymore. And it's almost like a light bulb goes off, but I really get in depth with them. My process is very differently than someone who comes and trains from the front of a classroom. I'm not just a classroom trainer. I'm a one-on-one coach consultant that really is diving in deep and understanding their patterns of thinking. I ask about your childhood. I want to know what it looked like. And they do look at me like I'm absolutely crazy. And I've made a lot of grown men cry. I will tell you that. But we all need some form of release from our old patterns of behavior or things that no longer exist. Money mindset is a big thing. We think about how our parents raised us. Money's the root of all evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. And as simplistic as it sounds, those thought patterns make up how we live our lives. When we can undo what's been done to us, it can be quite quickly, reversed. So everyone has their own way of getting past it. It's just how deep we can go and how honest you are with me, how much you're willing to change, and how not only are we letting go of old beliefs and old habits, but how fast we can implement new ones and really hold on to those. I call it like a millionaire mindset. What does your morning routine look like? And I want to be consistent. And once we create that consistency, everyone is different. So in order to affect change, I watch it. I can almost see it happening. It's like right before your eyes. It's a beautiful thing. And you could feel the release. And some people have been holding on to this aggression or these past beliefs. And it could be that you had the most wonderful childhood and you were on a pedestal. whatever, now you're not living up to the standards that your parents had set that expectation for you, which is kind of like today's society of children. And I have
Mhm.
4 of my own. So I like to make sure that we're in reality with them a little bit and telling them not so great at certain things. Um, but I really do believe that that is something that we as a society have to work on as well. And we hear all this about, it's just about going in and being confident. No, we need to wire differently. And that goes for everything. We don't just become overeaters overnight. We don't just become, lose all our money overnight. These are things that are shame, guilt. We have to undo a lot of what's been done to us. And that pattern could take days, weeks, years, depending on how fast a person really wants to change.
Hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about the different learning patterns, if you were,
Mhm.
because when I was first in charge of training for a sales team and stuff like this, it was kind of interesting, I thought, because I was the person that I could hear it and then I could go help someone else do it. And then I was helping out a young man that I'd known his family for years, and he was a good kid, but wasn't the best salesperson. And he said, "Can I see you do it?" And I said to him, "I just explained to you how to do it." He goes, "But I know, Glenn," he goes, "I'm a visual learner. If I can watch you do it, then it's going to resonate more with me." So that was when I first started to learn that every time I was going to train something, I wanted to do it this way, and this way to make sure I could get through to all the people that were there, not just a certain percentage of them.
Absolutely. And anyone, and Paul, you know this because you teach people how to speak better in public, right? I mean, that's the
Mhm.
precursor is we need to have deliverables. If I stood on stage and I spoke just for the entire hour and I didn't have anything that was of the different learning styles, I'm going to lose 3/4 of my audience.
Right.
So if you're in a sales presentation and we have different ways, which I do, it's called sensory acuity. And I find out by at construction how your brain constructs. I can look at your eye patterns and understand how you think. It's where you go for memory recall. It's on a different level. I know I'm kind of getting a little esoteric, but it really is. It's how our brain thinks. It's how we construct the reasoning. And when you get really good at this, I can find out how you buy without me asking you how you buy. And then I know how to sell to you differently. It may not be the only way. I may not just talk to you because you're auditory. I may also bring out my brochure, but I know that's not the main focal point. So when we present, we need to present with all 4 of those buying patterns or those acuities taken into consideration. So, we used to do the disc assessments where we learned where people were high drive, we were the black, we were the introverts, we were whatever it is, we're the everything, the Myers-Briggs. There's so many different sales out there, disc assessments. And I do believe they're still necessary to hire salespeople. It's just one little piece of the
Mhm.
puzzle that we do. I mean, I hire salespeople in a weird fashion. Superstars, they don't back down and they really know who they are and they know how they learn. But our prospects are different and we have to treat them all differently. And we have to understand their learning styles. And once we can construct that, we can form our presentation. And that's why you're training your staff to be so good at listening and understanding and feeling. Those days of just spewing information about your product or service, they've been long gone forever. This isn't the newspaper
Mhm.
anymore. We're selling to your value system and to how you want to be sold to. Once we can get that, we are providing a solution and it just walks us down the path in the process. And every person is different. So when I say train, 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 be prepared, be prepared, be prepared, when you sit in front of that consumer, you better understand exactly what you need to walk through. And it's not about being scripted. It's about knowing the process from A to Z so that if they get interrupted, that we can pick up at any time or we can change and adapt and
Mhm.
elicit some kind of emotion because we all buy an emotion.
Uh, Tell me, this is another topic that that keeps recurring here on Blabbit, and that is in the sales process. Is there wisdom? I'm being hypothetical here because I actually believe that there is wisdom to introducing third-party validation into the conversation. Does it give the decision maker the room to be able to give the decision? In other words, not using the language of this really sounds like something that you need, but changing the wording around and saying, well, people who have this sort of problem often ask me to do this. In other words, giving them that third party validation. Do you experience any of that in terms of language, in terms of delivery?
Sure. And again, it's about eliciting some kind of emotion. So I look at it as if they're an auditory digital, they're the review lookers. They do their due diligence before you walk in the house. They're the ones who are getting 5 estimates. They want party validation. So if I come into your world and we're sitting and then I find that you're thinking and you're an auditory digital, I listen for your language, I read your icon, when I ask you certain questions, understand how you construct your thoughts. We know that you're auditory digital. I will bring that up. I will say I've had other, customers like you, other clients that have, and then we bring in testimonials and any kind of matter of
Mhm.
fact. I need to put this in front of you because it's going to give me a different outcome, but not for everyone. We all don't buy that way. So we need to really find out how they buy, what they really are looking for, and construct their thought patterns of how they buy. And once we do that, then we can sell on that. It's really not that difficult. I think people, one size fits all is gone, and going through your whole pitch doesn't work. So we need to ask the questions that are eliciting the emotion. And you'll know when you start to feel people, if you're really good at it. And I don't think that anyone, because Glenn had just said it, had made a point before about salespeople, if you're a true salesperson, you're a good listener. And most of good listeners are introverted. So we don't always look for the extroverted people unless we're just relationship building. But what makes a good salesperson is someone who can understand how others are thinking and what they value. And I personally could never just sell anything. It's not in my blood. I need to have a
Mhm.
passion behind it. I'm not a natural born salesperson. I had to train to become better. Am I a good relationship builder? Do I talk to everyone? Yeah, because that's who I am. But I can take people who sat behind a computer in IT and make them a wonderful a solution provider because I find out how they can gain momentum in their process. And usually they're organized. I mean, I'm going to say this, and then, I'm a visionary entrepreneur salesperson. I've got a little ADHD in me. I'm here, I'm there, I'm all over the place. And like-minded people are generally like me with that. A lot of entrepreneurs have that. And I'm not saying there's anything good or bad. I just use it to help me. So we have to understand ourselves, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just I have a passion for what I do and I know how to maneuver it and I know how to help you understand what your needs are. And it's not always about finding the pain. Because if
Mhm.
I want a Mercedes, I don't have any pain. Well, my pain is that I'm not going to go fast enough in my car right now, right? So how do we entice someone? How do we build that value? How do we understand, like, if I'm auditory, do I want to hear the purr of the engine? If I'm kinesthetic, do I want to touch it? Do I want to feel how sleek it is? Do I want to sit in the leather? So we have to understand how people buy, and it'll change the patterns of how we provide the solution. If
So
that
it's
makes
finding a
sense.
different salute or a different way to present the old feel felt found.
Yep, it is, and that feel felt found kind of, it's just like anything else today. We've had to completely pivot. We have to understand our avatar. I mean, sales, um, car salesmen, they really truly have one of the greatest opportunities in front of them. Everyone needs a car. They most do a terrible job at the onset. They don't frame anything. They don't ask the right questions. They don't understand what's important to people. They don't find out about the safety and the comfort. Or is it just luxury? Is it just aesthetics? And then they never follow up. We don't have a customer for life. And if you guys know how many companies I deal with that don't create a good customer experience, it's sad.
Hmm.
It's a transaction. We are looking, for me, it's about a relationship build and a relationship sell. Membership program, understanding, handwritten thank you notes. Bring back some of that wow experience. Where are we creating that anymore? So I am the difference that makes the difference. And I'm selling myself.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a
We-
shame the millions of dollars that they throw away with that list and they just don't utilize
Uh,
it.
how many companies have a list of 30,000 people on their database because we went to their house one time, whether we sold them or we didn't sell them, and we don't do anything with it?
How about this for an example? We moved to California in a rush 8 years ago, sight unseen, leased a house. You know that real estate agent leased a house and never followed up once? to say,
How is that even
are you looking to
possible?
buy? Are you looking to move somewhere else? They wasted that time.
Glenn, I want to know who you're buying from, what affiliate programs I can hook you up with. Who do you know that I need to connect you with? What else do you need in your house? If I'm an electrician and I'm coming there to do service in your home, you bet your ass I'm going to do a full inspection of your entire property because there's an opportunity there. And then I'm going to flip it to my comfort advisor or whomever does the sales for my organization. And we're going to make an appointment before I even leave that house. Mrs. Smith, you're going to get the best of the best that's coming to your home to fix this, because we lose opportunities every day because we don't train our service technicians. We don't train the CSRs. We don't train the dispatch. We are not following through on every damn level as consumers. I mean, selling to consumers. It's unnerving. And then
Well,
people say, well, why aren't we selling more?
well, then how about this? Because my pet peeve is I hate the word that I'm training salespeople or I'm wanting you to be a sales professional. I don't want that. I want you to learn how to be a service provider and provide solutions. Because if you
Right.
provide solutions, you'll be working with them for years. If you sell them something, you may be working with them once.
Right. That's transactional, right? Then we want a relationship with them. And I want to know who else you need in your world, because then I'm going to create affiliate programs all around it. I've been doing it for years. I want it,
Mhm.
and it helps me make extra money, but it also puts you in a place where I'm recommending quality people into your world that you may have taken weeks, days to find. You may not even know you have the issue in your home. I mean, I don't know who listens to this, whether it's different industries, and there is industry specific in this, but if you're doing something that's helping someone else, we have opportunity to keep helping and providing. Like if you come to, I'll give you an instance. My ex-husband and I, we did we had our funeral homes, and he still runs them. But we were concierge approach. How can I make this easier for you? Mom passed away, and that's unfortunate. We're here for you in that regard. But now you need a real estate agent. Maybe she has a home. We need someone to come and clean out that house. We need somebody who has a financial acumen that can help you put together, draw from the trust or put together whatever it is. We know people, so that concierge approach really works well with people, because then I can introduce you to a whole nother world, and it takes the stress off of you, right? That was my approach. Like, how can we make this easier? We ordered your flowers for you. We booked your repast. So as a solution provider, how could I keep furthering my relationship with you by enhancing value?
Mhm.
And that's where we fall short, because everybody goes, oh, I made that sale. There's 10 grand for me. And then they're out. And we're only as good as our last sale. So we need to keep looking at different opportunities, how they're going to affect us, and how we can take that and help others. It's just simple.
Right. Well, now the intersection of that mindset with the need or the desire to make any business scalable is the best argument for automating things, because all you have to do, you're talking about, well, if they need this, if they need this, if they need this, well, there's probably a list of 6 to 12 things that most people who are going through, let's say, the funeral home experience, going through a burial, that they will need. And so
Hmm.
you may be offering them some things that they don't need, but it's a courtesy. It is
It's a
just a courtesy.
courtesy.
But it's one email that can be automated, that can literally be sent
Absolutely.
out. Again, anyone who's not embracing the automations that are available to all of us are just not looking at things the right way. And that it's a huge part of sales too, without losing. It doesn't mean just because technology is introduced in a really big way that you're losing any of that personal approach. It's the fact that you are reaching out. I mean, it's far better than, as Glenn was saying, no reach out whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand how we have these people in our world. We have an opportunity right in front of us, and we don't capitalize on it. We're not. We need to educate. Number one, we're educating our consumers because they don't know what we think they know, right?
Mhm.
So we're educating them, and then we need to look at our better buyers, and then we say, how can we sell more to our better buyers? Instead of looking, how many times do you hear people, I don't have enough clients? What are we selling to our existing client base? How can we add on to that? How do we take the people who loved us from get day one and sell more to them? We need to think differently. And then on top of that, like create programs around the courtesy of that. People care that you're helping them. now we've kind of created that relationship. I'm not going anywhere. And it's, I look at pest control. They kind of have that nailed in, right? That's really dialed in for them. They have a membership program. They come out every 3 months. Now, what else can they introduce me to? That's where the mark is missing. We need to think about what happens after today and what else can we do in your home? And then we can tie in those different scenarios. And maybe, maybe there's a referral in it for me, whatever, but at least we're providing solutions to our homeowner and to the person driving the car. Maybe we hook up as let's say, Ford down the street with a local car wash. And we say, we're also offering at this time a discount on year-long car washes or a monthly membership. I've yet to see that. Why are we not looking for other opportunities with the same people who already love us?
And even if you're not getting anything from it, just by saying, Paul, you might want to think about contacting so-and-so. They have this for you. Guess what? Now I'm the guy Paul's going to contact. You're the gal Paul's going to contact. And when Paul is happy because you've helped something with him, he's going to tell his neighbor, and his neighbor might call me. He's going to tell his friend, and his friend might call me, because we always want to be the person that says, I got a guy, I got a gal.
I got a guy. I am
Oh, yeah.
that person. Believe me, I've been living in the town that I did business in. You got somebody to do granite, I got a guy. Somebody to do driveways. And my father was in, the construction world as well as financial advising. So we had intersected that plane. People. And now I'm the go-to girl. People call me all the time. And it's like the first Angie's List, a referral-based I actually had a referral company before she came about. For me, it was putting the pieces to a qualified, carpenter or qualified framer, because they were few and far between, quite honestly. So the concept is there. And when we can be that go-to person and you can be that trusted advisor, now we're going to come to you with anything. And really, that's what I think selling is about. It's about creating a relationship with no boundaries and understanding the needs of someone else, providing that solution, and then enhancing our relationship even further so that we can keep working together. And it may not be just with me, but in any capacity. Just providing value. That's all we have.
Law of reciprocity is a strong law. It'll take care of you.
It's true. And what you put out there is what you get back.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely 100%. Find a penny, drop another one, right? I mean, that's the way it goes.
Now, I have a question, a little bit of a tangent question for you, Sandy, and that is, I know when anyone goes on your website, or on your LinkedIn page, you have an affiliation, or you had an experience, maybe you still do, with Tony Robbins. Is that correct?
Yep.
Could you tell our audience a little bit about what that was like?
Oh my gosh, it was so fun. So it was actually with Chet Holmes to begin with. If you don't know Chet Holmes, he wrote The Ultimate Sales Machine. He was one of the greatest marketers. He's since passed in 2013, and he's greatly missed. It was one of the most wonderful experiences of my life, and it was also very pivotal because it made me understand who I was, and dealing with $25 million companies that really couldn't get out of their own way. So I began the process with answering an ad for a job, and I was working from home. I had a bakery, and we had funeral homes. I had 3 little kids. So this is back in 2006 when it was pick up the phone kind of thing to sell. And I got rejected 3 times. And I kept saying, they were like, we don't hear sales superstar. I'm like, who the hell are you not hearing sales superstar? Like, what do you mean? And I was getting so emotional about it, but it was a great way to weed out people because they were objecting me. And that would mean, as a salesperson, when we heard our first no, we would go away. So that's how I got into their world. I started to coach and sell. So it was like a 1-call close onto a webinar. And then once they went onto the webinar, they were educated, and then they bought coaching from there. So it was a radio ad to a webinar. It was like all this stuff, but it worked. And he led us down a path. He was one of the most brilliant people I've ever met, Chet. And then Tony came into the world, and the company was called Business Breakthroughs. So every Monday we were hot seated, and Tony would be there, and Jay Abrams. Like, we had some really cool people, John Asroff. There were a lot of, it was very multifaceted, but to be in that company, again, proximity is power. So I learned through being hot seated and getting my butt kicked a little bit, not only by the entrepreneurs on the other line and told no 1,000 times a day, but also how to overcome my own self, my own thoughts, my own belief systems, and understand that what I'm doing is going to help someone else be better. So I can't buy their limitations. And he used to call them incantations. You can only say can. We were never allowed to say can. So it was probably one of the best experiences of my life for 3 years. It taught me so much about it's not about the sales. It's about what am I doing for you? How is this going to make your life better? And when truly believing that I'm providing something for you, there's no push pull. It's just what we need, what we want, what we desire. So it was a phenomenal experience. I'm proud to say that I came out of that with just being a better person overall. So I appreciate that question.
We could talk about that for the next 2 hours, Paul. So thanks for bringing that up at the end.
Yeah. Last question's always the best one.
Well, and maybe we do that subconsciously, Glenn, because we always, especially with Sandy, and this for anybody who hasn't seen Sandy before, this is your return to Blabbit.
Yes,
but we leave
it.
the door wide open. Maybe that's why we're sponsored by Open Doors. I don't know.
There you go. Open doors. We're always wanting more. We leave them wanting more, right?
That's right. That's right. So as we wind up to the hour here, Sandy, how can anyone and everyone get in touch with you?
I am Sandy Papavero on every single channel, whether it's Instagram, and I don't really do a lot of social media, and I don't have a large following on Instagram. I don't believe it's necessary. I'm a really referral based. That is how it is. But if you guys want to get in touch with me, Facebook is by far the best way. I'm on there more than any other, and LinkedIn, I would say too. I don't even have my website up right now. It was getting to the point where it was just a barrier to entry. And I like to just speak to people and have them come into my world organically. And that's how you can. Facebook and LinkedIn. Look me up. It's Sandy Papavero. Yeah. Message me. We'll have a conversation. It's as simple as that.
Cool.
Yep. Well, thank you very much. This has been a pleasure.
You guys are the best. Thank you for having me back. I truly appreciate it. Can't wait till the next time.
All right. Take care, Sandy.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Back same time, same channels next week, everyone. Take care.